Every leader hits a wall at some point. You look at your team, your organization, and all you see is just chaos. So, what do you do next? No, really, think about it. How do you lead when your team is just falling apart? You've got constant arguments, negativity spreading like wildfire, and it feels like everyone's just in it for themselves. It can feel, well, impossible, right? Well, what if the answer is hiding in a really surprising place? We're going to unpack a piece of a 2,000-year-old letter. Yeah, you heard me right. It's from the Apostle Paul to his young protege, Timothy. And we're not looking at this like a sermon. Think of it as a practical and honestly a shockingly relevant leadership playbook. So, where does this playbook start? And get this, it doesn't start with fixing your team. It starts with fixing you. The very first battle, it says, is always internal. Okay, so the letter lays out this brilliant metaphor. It says in any great house, just think of that as any organization, you've got different kinds of containers. Some are for special purposes, like a beautiful vase you put on display, and others are for common use, like the garbage can. So the question the mentor is basically asking is simple but powerful. Which one are you? And this is the absolute key. It's not about what you're made of. It's about whether you take the time to cleanse yourself. A leader's number one job, before anything else, is to make sure they are personally fit for the task, that they are that clean vessel, that fine vase, ready and useful for the most important work. Okay, so how do you actually do that? The playbook lays out a super simple two-step ethic. It's not enough to just avoid the bad stuff, to flee from pointless arguments and destructive habits. You have to actively turn and pursue the good stuff. Righteousness, faith, love, peace. See, you don't just empty the garbage can. You've got to actively fill the vase. All right, so once your own house is in order, then you can start dealing with all that chaos outside. And that brings us to the next big challenge, how to handle conflict and your opponents. And what's so wild about the advice here is how it goes against every single one of our instincts. When we're faced with opposition, we want to fight back, right? Get defensive, prove we're right. This playbook says, nope, do the exact opposite. Don't be quarrelsome. Be kind. Be a teacher. And maybe the hardest one of all, don't be resentful. Let it go. And all this really forces you to ask a pretty fundamental question. When you get into a debate, what's your actual goal? Is it just to crush your opponent, to prove you're right and stand there victorious? Or is there something bigger at play? Yeah, the playbook strategy here is pretty radical. The goal isn't to win the argument, it's to win the person. You instruct gently, you create the space for them to maybe, just maybe, change their own mind. The real win isn't proving them wrong, it's creating the chance for their redemption. Okay, so now let's zoom out a bit. The advice moves from these one-on-one conflicts to the much bigger challenge of leading when it feels like the whole culture around you is, well, falling apart. The playbook gives this really stark warning. It says, mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. And here's the thing you have to understand. The source material explains that the last days doesn't mean some distant, fiery apocalypse. It actually refers to the entire era we're living in right now. So this warning, it's for us. I mean, does any of this sound a little familiar? The playbook lists the symptoms, a culture obsessed with self, with money, with pleasure. People who are elusive, ungrateful, lacking self-control. I mean, it's a 2,000-year-old diagnosis that sounds like it could have been ripped from today's headlines, right? But here's the real gut punch, the core of the critique. It says, the biggest danger isn't people who are just openly evil. It's people who have the form of godliness. They look the part, they say all the right things, but they deny its actual power. There's no real moral substance there, no integrity. And look, this isn't just some abstract ancient idea. As one scholar, Dr. Robert Yarbrough, points out, this warning speaks directly to our modern world, to things like online addiction that eats away at our character in private, and to the constant institutional scandals where leaders say one thing and do the complete opposite. Okay, so things are looking pretty bleak, right? You've got internal battles, external conflicts, a culture in decay. So what's a leader supposed to do? Well, the playbook doesn't leave you hanging. It gives you two key tools for resilience. And the solution comes down to two things that are surprisingly simple but incredibly powerful. First, the example of a mentor you can trust. And second, the instruction manual itself, the Holy Scriptures.
So Paul, the mentor, reminds his protege Timothy about the persecutions he himself went through. The point isn't for Paul to brag. It's for him to look at Timothy and say, look, I got through this, and you can too. And this is so important. If you're trying to live a good life, a godly life, you will face opposition. It's not a sign you're failing. It's practically part of the job description.
And that brings us to the second resource, the training manual itself. The letter uses this very specific, very powerful word to describe it. It's a Greek word, theopneustos, and it means God-breathed. The idea is that these scriptures aren't just inspired by God, they're literally breathed out by him. They're as vital and personal as your own breath.
And because it's God-breathed, it becomes this perfect 4-in-1 tool. It's useful for teaching you what's true, for reproof, that is, showing you where you're going wrong, for correction, to get you back on the right path, and for training you in how to live right. I mean, it pretty much covers all the bases.
So what's the end game here? What happens when you use these two resources? You follow your mentor's lead, and you dive into this God-breathed training manual. The result is that the leader, the servant of God, will be totally, completely, thoroughly equipped for every single good work. Think about that. Not just some good work, but every good work. It's a promise of total competence, of being ready for anything and everything that comes your way. And that really leaves us with one last big question to chew on. In our world, which is just flooded with leadership gurus and self-help books, what does it mean if the most powerful, the most practical playbook for navigating all this modern chaos is actually 2,000 years old?